There's a simple thing as a leader, and you know this having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send...
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Truth Review. I'm Hayes, and Jesse Ventura just called for Barron Trump to enlist on live television, and the reasoning behind it is impossible to dismiss. Bill O'Reilly spent his half of the segment claiming inside knowledge from the White House, predicting the entire Iran situation would be resolved in 2 weeks with a clean deal. Piers pushed back with a real argument, and O'Reilly's response was to call it a theory. That was the entire rebuttal. Then Ventura sat down, laid out his family's full service record across 3 generations of American wars, and said the one thing that should be on every front page: war is only justified if you're willing to send your own kids. Then he named the specific kid who never has. Hit subscribe because Truth Review follows the argument all the way through, not just the 15-second clip. Now let's get into it.
It may be right, but it doesn't jibe with what my information flow is, because, as I said, Trump didn't want this military action. It wasn't his arrogance that, oh, I kicked Venezuela's butt, so now I can do the same thing to Iran. I mean, he would have told me if he wanted it. That's what we would have discussed, how to go about it militarily. That's not what we discussed. It was how to get a deal. So going forward, here's how I see it. Iran's going to have to make a deal because Trump's not going to stop. And if he has to lose the midterms, he'll lose the midterms. Remember, he didn't have to run again. Okay? He's not stopping. He's not going to say, oh, we lost, ever. That's number one. So the deal is going to look like Iran will allow weapons inspectors in, probably from the UN, to examine what's going on with the nukes. They'll stop enriching, and they will destroy their ballistic missile capacity, which is already almost destroyed. So we're only talking about a few missiles, not many. Okay, in return, there'll be more favorable economic treatment for Iran on a rebuild basis. Trump knows he's not going to get regime change, so that's, you know, he can saber rattle on it, but that's not going to happen unless the Persian people rise up. And, you know, with these people gunning you down in the street, you know, you're a student of history a little bit, Piers. In 1945, when the Russians were coming in from the east and the Allies coming in from the west to Berlin, the German people didn't rise up against Hitler. Nobody rose up against Hitler in Germany because the SS would shoot you down in the street. It's the same thing going on in Iran. So likely, and I think within a space of a couple of weeks, this thing will cease and some kind of an arrangement will be made so that the mullahs can tell their people they didn't lose, and Trump can tell his people they won. We won. America won. That's what's likely to happen.
Bill O'Reilly, I will invite you back in 2 weeks' time, and we shall see.
If I'm not deported, I may be in Portugal.
But you know what? You'll be even nearer to me, Bill. Get on a plane to London.
Yeah.
Great to have you.
We're coming to England at the end of May, and you're gonna do an interview with me. I'm telling you, you're gonna do, or I'm coming to your house. About this Muslim intrusion. On London.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so you're in, right?
I'm happy to talk about that.
All right. Excellent. We'll set it on up. Thanks for having me on the program.
And I'd love to see you on the set of Uncensored while you're here. It'd be great.
Okay.
Bill, great to have you. Thanks very much. Well, Jesse Ventura is a former U.S. Navy SEAL, a former professional wrestler, a former actor, and a former governor of Minnesota. We've had many memorable interviews over the years. I'm pleased to say he joins me again now. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing good, Piers. It's been a long time for you and I. I tried to retire, but... Well, I tried to retire, but unfortunately, they sent the Gestapo to my high school and they hit it with chemical weapons, which are a war crime. and that brought me back out of retirement to stand up against the war criminal in the White House.
Wow. Well, that sounds suitably dramatic.
Well, that's the way it happened. I mean, I was retired. I hadn't watched the news since the last election. My son said, "You're way better, Dad. You're not tense anymore. Keep it up." And then lo and behold, these ICE characters, I call them the Gestapo, and I think I can do that. And let me get something straight right now, Piers, so people know where I'm coming from. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I. My parents both fought in World War II. My father had 6 bronze battle stars in Europe. My mother was a nurse in North Africa, which predated Normandy, fighting Rommel, the Desert Fox, the greatest German general. Both my parents were World War II veterans. My brother and I are both Vietnam veterans and member of the Navy UDT SEAL. We both did 2 tours to Southeast Asia. So everyone in my family is a war veteran. I wanted to get that out right now so it'll help with the things that I'm going to say to you in the moments to come.
So ICE agents came to your school, you said?
What's that?
You said the ICE agents came to your school?
Yeah, the ICE agents came to the school where I went to high school, chasing some guy down just like the Gestapo. And I heard people were offended calling them that. Really? I can tell you right now, if my parents would have been alive and they would have seen what happened in Minneapolis, they would have called it the Gestapo too. So they come to my school, they use tear gas and pepper spray at the school. Now, here's a question I have, Piers. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I, and he was gassed. He came home, but his life was ruined. He could never do anything. What did they do? They outlawed it. Gas using chemical weapons became a war crime. Why is it that you can't use them on your enemy, but you're allowed to use them on your own people? That has always been, where is the media on this? You know, using chemical weapons against our own people, which is in essence a war crime.
Well, I think I wouldn't describe the gas used by ICE agents as chemical weapons. I mean, that infers weapons of mass
tear
destruction.
gas. They're spraying people from 6 inches away right in their face. I can't use that in war. I wasn't allowed to carry tear gas or any type of chemical weapon in war. It's banned from war. It's considered a war crime. You can't use it against your enemy, but you can use it against your own people. Doesn't something ring wrong there for you, Piers?
Well, a lot rang wrong about what was going on in Minnesota, and I'm very glad that it has been resolved, at least for now. And I think
it
Donald
hasn't
Trump
been resolved.
Well, no, not
Piers,
completely, but
nothing's been resolved.
No, I understand.
We have 2 dead people here.
Yeah,
2 people were killed by the Gestapo here.
Yeah, I understand. And those investigations are ongoing, but at least the ICE activity that was going on and the way it was being conducted has been removed from Minnesota, which is a good thing. And I thought what happened was appalling. And I said so at the time. Let me ask you about Iran and your view of this war.
Well, here's how I feel about it. There's a simple thing as a leader. And you know this, having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own? So I'm calling right now for Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son. You know, after all, he's had 3 wives, he's had kids by each wife, and nobody's ever served in the military. To my knowledge, a Trump in the last 100 years has never done military service. Well, Barron, you can change that. Enlist in the United States military right now. Do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. I want to see a Trump in the military. Everybody in my family has served, so I think I can say that with all due confidence. Come on, Trumps. Don't just reap the benefits of this free world. Somebody put on the uniform, and that's you, Barron. And I heard the excuse that Barron might be too tall. David Robinson served on active duty. He was 7 feet tall before he ever went to the San Antonio Spurs basketball team. David Robinson went to the United States Navy Military Academy. He's one of my officers, not directly, but he would have been.
Okay, look, it's one argument that a Trump should serve. That's a perfectly reasonable argument to make. A lot of people feel that way. But it doesn't change what's going on in Iran. What is your view of this war? Do you think it's a legitimate war? Many people think that the Iranian regime has been the instrument of terror through the Middle East for 40 years.
Of course they have been. Of course they have been, Piers. But wait a minute. Trump then calls you guys NATO cowards. Wait a minute. NATO is set up to protect. That means that if a NATO country is attacked, they will all join together to repel it. It doesn't go in reverse. It doesn't mean if one of the NATO countries starts a war that all the others have to join in. That ain't part of the deal. The deal is protection, not aggression.
Let's break down what actually happened in this exchange, because there are two separate threads worth pulling apart carefully, and both of them hold up under scrutiny. Start with the O'Reilly prediction, because it deserves to be checked against what actually happened afterward. O'Reilly told Piers with total confidence that Iran would make a deal within a couple of weeks, that Trump would get weapons inspectors back in, enrichment would stop, ballistic missile capacity would be reduced further, and everybody would walk away able to claim some version of victory. That was the entire framework he presented as insider knowledge from the White House. Checking that prediction against what has actually unfolded since, the ceasefire collapsed. The United States carried out fresh strikes on Iranian targets, including sites in Bushehr province, following attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump himself said at the NATO summit that he considers the ceasefire finished and that he wants the job completed rather than a negotiated settlement. That is not the 2-week resolution O'Reilly promised on national television. That is a conflict extending into another month with no clear endpoint. When Piers pushed back with a substantive counterargument, O'Reilly's response was simply to call it a theory, without engaging with the actual reasoning behind it. That is not a rebuttal, that is a dismissal, and the subsequent events have not been kind to the original prediction. Now to the Ventura argument, which deserves to be examined on its own terms because it rests on a documented historical pattern rather than pure rhetoric. Ventura laid out his family's service record in full before making his point. A grandfather gassed in World War I, 2 parents who served in World War II, with his father earning 6 bronze battle stars, and Ventura himself, alongside his brother, serving as Navy SEALs with 2 tours in Vietnam. That context matters because the argument he built afterward is not coming from someone with no stake in military service. The core claim is straightforward. A war is only morally justified if the people making the decision are willing to send their own children into it. And by that standard, Ventura pointed to the fact that no Trump in the past 100 years across 3 marriages and multiple children has served in the United States military. That is a factual claim about a documented family history, not a personal insult invented for effect. The draft record adds necessary context here. Donald Trump received 5 draft deferments during the Vietnam era, 4 for being a student and a 5th specifically for bone spurs, a diagnosis that appears to have surfaced at almost exactly the moment his student deferment was expiring, with no documented lasting medical treatment on record. That is part of the selective service history, not a theory or an accusation invented after the fact. So when Ventura frames the current conflict through the lens of who actually bears the cost of war, he is drawing directly from that documented record rather than constructing an argument out of nothing. The specific challenge to Barron Trump, daring him to be the first Trump in a century to put on a military uniform, is where the argument becomes uncomfortable in a way neither Piers nor O'Reilly had a real response to. Whether or not any particular young man chooses military service is obviously his own decision to make, but Ventura's underlying point stands on its own regardless of what Barron Trump ultimately does. The pattern he identified, that the people who advocate loudest for military action are rarely the ones whose own families bear the risk, is a pattern that shows up across the history of American foreign policy far beyond this one administration. And aiming it directly with specifics rather than vague generalities is exactly why nobody on that panel had a clean counter to it. Subscribe to Truth Review. We follow the argument through to its conclusion. We check predictions against outcomes, and we don't let a documented record get waved off as just a theory.